Of the many harrowing stories that came out of South Africa's appalling apartheid regime, MIRIAM MAKEBA's escape from the racist white rule was one of the more heartwarming. Banned from singing to white audiences, she found a way out when she accepted an offer to appear on the Steve Allen Show in the United States. From there, together with the help of Harry Belafonte, she found world fame, and when I interviewed her in 1966, she still had never returned to her native country, finally travelling under a Tanzanian passport because the South African government would not renew her native passport. She had a colourful life, first marrying Hugh Masekela, a marriage that lasted 2 years, and then Stokely Carmichael, the civil rights activist, a marriage which lasted a decade. She was a totally charming, warm person, as you will hear from this interview, enjoying life and still very much in love with singing. She died in 2008 at the age of 76, far too soon for such a wonderful singer and lovely human being. A quote attributed to her reads, "Age is getting to know all the ways the world turns, so that if you cannot turn the world the way you want, you can at least get out of the way, so you won't get run over." You can almost hear her saying that with her lovely lilting voice and accent.
Martin Bronstein. I'm sitting in the Comedy Canadian with MIRIAM MAKEBA, who's advertised as the voice of Africa. When did you start singing? Why did you start singing?
I guess because I love to sing. I just liked singing since I was a child. And, my father's wish was to send me to school to study music. Unfortunately, he died in 1939 before I even started school. But then I found out I could sing, so I just sang without having studied for it.
Did you earn your living as a singer in Africa?
Yes. When I left school, I just helped my mother, who was a domestic servant, working around wherever she was working, until I found a group I could sing with in South Africa. And I started singing in 1953, late 53, with a group called the Manhattan Brothers. They're in England now. They went there with the show King Kong, and they stayed after the run of the show.
They call themselves the Manhattan Brothers?
Yes, somehow. I don't know why they call themselves the Black Manhattan Brothers.
Is there very much work for singers in Africa?
There was in South Africa, yes, until recently, exactly 1959. The South African government started closing many doors for black artists. We couldn't perform in the nightclubs because they were for white people, and we weren't allowed to drink. And before that, we could perform in the city halls for white audiences some nights and black audiences some nights. And then they thought that this was bringing the two groups closer together, because there were then white people who would invite us to their homes because they had seen us performing. And so they put a stop to that, and now the black artists can only perform in the reservations or townships or locations, whatever you choose to call them, and not
For
in the
black
cities.
audiences?
Yes, not
So-
in the cities at all.
So black artists can no longer perform for white audiences?
No.
This made Africa, South Africa, pretty uncomfortable for you.
Yes, very much.
Did you leave because you wanted to, or because you had offers, or why?
I left because I had an offer to appear on the Steve Allen Show in New York, in California. He had seen me in a film which was filmed in Johannesburg by a man called Lionel Rogerson from New York. He made a film called Come Back Africa, which showed the life of an African living under apartheid in Johannesburg. And this was filmed underground. He took it back to America and showed it to a few people. Steve Allen was one of the people who saw the show. And I sang 2 songs in the film. And he then asked Lionel to write and ask me if I'd like to come and appear on his program. This was in 1957. I then applied for a passport, which I had to wait 2 years for. I received it in April 59, having applied for it in July 57. And when I received the passport, I asked Lionel if it was still all right for me to come. He said yes, and I left South Africa, went to England. From England, I went to Italy to represent the film Come Back Africa at the Venice Film Festival. And when I came back, I then applied for a visa to come to New York. I then found out I didn't have the authorization to travel US and Canada on my passport. And I had trouble getting that, but then I was given a visa because of Steve Allen and Max Gordon, who owns the Village Vanguard and the Blue Angel. They had contracts for me to work with them, so I was given a visa to come. And I was only to stay 4 weeks in the United States, but I've been here now 5 years.
5 years.
This is my sixth
Have you
year.
been back to Africa yet?
I've been to other parts of Africa, such as Tanzania, Kenya, Ethiopia, Ivory Coast, and Ghana, which I was in Ghana about 2 weeks ago for the Conference of African Heads of State. I was invited by President Nkrumah to perform at the banquet for the heads of state.
But you haven't been to South Africa yet.
I'm not allowed back into South Africa. In 1961, when my passport expired, I asked for a renewal and I was refused a renewal. Then I was without a passport for almost 2 years. The end of 62, the Tanzanian government gave me a passport, which I have now.
So you're no longer African, you're now Tanzanian.
I guess I am.
To many people across the world, your name first became known when you teamed up with Harry Belafonte. Now, when was this? In around about 1960?
1961, yes. My first appearance with him was a benefit, the end of 1960 at Carnegie Hall. We did a benefit for the Wiltwick School for Boys, and it was recorded on his album that was called Belafonte Returns to Carnegie Hall. And I sang 2 songs on the album. And then I started going on tour with him in 1961, and that tour brought us to Canada as well, in Toronto at the O'Keefe Center, and all the eastern cities in the U.S., and we went to the Midwest as well.
How long did that partnership with Harry Belafonte last?
Oh, it wasn't really a partnership. I sing with him whenever I'm available to sing with him and whenever he needs me. But there was no contract between us. It was always a verbal agreement. I've done about 5 national tours with him. The last one was last year in the summer. We did a 7-week tour of the East, all the summer tents, and we ended up at Forest Hills in New York.
Were you surprised at the non-African audiences taking so readily to your African songs and your African singing?
Yes, I was actually. I didn't know what to expect when I left home. I was very frightened going to the United States, where so many good artists have come out and who were well known to even South African audiences, and I didn't know what I was going to do there, or if it would be accepted and appreciated. But then it was, and I was very happy but surprised.
When did you start singing in English?
I always sang in English, even in South Africa. Actually, I sang more English in South Africa than I have here. But when I came here, I felt that there were so many other artists who sang in English that I should make my singing predominantly African and sing in English as well. I sing also in other languages. I don't speak some of them, but I sing in French, I sing in Yiddish and Hebrew, Javanese, and Brazilian Portuguese. I try to learn the songs and the meaning of the songs and the pronunciation of the words, and whatever language I can I try to sing.
What do you feel has been your most successful song in North America?
I don't know. I never really had a big hit. I'm not one of those artists that have hits that go to number one or
No, but
the
you
first 10. But
You do get
I
requests.
find that the click song is one that's more known than any other, I guess because of the language being so peculiar to people with the clicking sound, and some people don't even believe that I'm doing it. They think the drummer or somebody else is hitting on something, but actually this is part of my language, and which is Xhosa, and we use the same letters in the alphabet as in English, but some are pronounced differently, such as the Q, which is no, X, which is ne, C is ni, and R is kha. So we have words like utwicha, which means a doctor, and iqaqa, which is a skunk, iqaqo, which is a frog. And when people hear this, I guess it's new to them. And
Well, after that, I should imagine most other languages were easy for you to learn.
not that easy, I'm afraid. My tongue being so used to clicking and all that, it was quite difficult learning other languages.
My time is up. Thank you very much for speaking with us, and I wish you a very, very good engagement here in Montreal.
Thank you.